Picture this: a ribbon of asphalt stretching out under a sky bruised with the colors of a fading autumn sun. The hum of tires against the road, a steady heartbeat in the quiet. I'm Richard, 38 years old, gripping the steering wheel as I guide our old sedan down the familiar 2-hour stretch from our suburban home, just outside Chicago, to my parents' place in a sleepy Indiana town. Beside me, Emily, my wife of 12 years, hums softly to a tune on the radio. At 35, she's the kind of woman who can light up any room with her warmth and quick wit, always knowing just what to say to put you at ease. I've always believed our bond was built on unshakable trust and love, a foundation I never thought to question. Today, we're headed to celebrate my father Harold's 68th birthday. And as the miles slip by, I can't help but feel a quiet anticipation for the comfort of family. My parents, Harold and Margaret, are the heart of that comfort. Dad's a retired mechanic, a stern man with a proud streak, who spent over 3 decades crafting an incredible collection of model cars that line the shelves of his workshop. Mom, a retired schoolteacher, balances him with her gentle nature, always ready with a plate of warm, homemade cookies and a kind word. Their cozy 2-story house sits in a quiet corner of town, a place that's been my anchor since childhood. As we cross the town line, the faded welcome sign at the edge of the street greets us like an old friend. I slow down, taking in the neatly trimmed hedges framing my parents' yard, the faint scent of wood smoke drifting on the crisp autumn air. As we gather around the dining table in my parents' warmly lit home, the air is thick with the sweet scent of vanilla and chocolate from the birthday cake sitting proudly in the center. I look around at the familiar faces: my father Harold at the head of the table, his weathered hands folded in front of him, my mother Margaret bustling with plates, and a handful of Dad's old buddies filling the room with their gravelly voices. Emily sits beside me, her hand resting lightly on my arm, her smile as bright as ever. We all break into a slightly off-key rendition of Happy Birthday, our voices rising and falling with a kind of clumsy joy. Dad's gruff exterior seems to melt just a little as he forward, his eyes crinkling at the corners with a rare smile, and blows out the candles in one steady puff. The room erupts in applause, and Emily claps with such enthusiasm that her laughter cuts through the noise, clear and infectious. I feel this warm swell in my chest, a quiet pride in how effortlessly she's woven herself into the fabric of my family. Mom starts slicing the cake, her knife gliding through the layers with practiced ease, and hands out generous wedges to everyone. I lean over to her as she passes me a plate, chatting about the usual things: how work's been keeping me on my toes, how the kids are doing in school. She nods, her eyes soft with that maternal concern, and I can tell she's half listening, half worrying about whether everyone's got enough to eat. Across the table, Dad's friends are giving him a hard time about getting another year under his belt. They're teasing laced with affection. One of them, I'm still sitting at the dining table, the remnants of birthday cake crumbs scattered on my plate, when I glance at the clock. It's been about 15 minutes since Emily and my father disappeared into the study, their voices fading behind the closed door. I'm picking at the edge of my napkin, lost in thought, when suddenly Dad reappears in the doorway. His face is a mask, stern as always, but there's something else there. A flicker of something I can't pin down, maybe unease, maybe anticipation. He doesn't meet my eyes for long before his gaze sweeps over the room, locking onto his 6 buddies still lingering near the table. Tom, Jerry, Carl, Mike, Dave, Steve, he calls out, his voice gruff but carrying that undeniable weight of authority. Come join me in the study. Got something special to show you. Then his eyes cut to me, sharp and unyielding. Richard, stay here with your mother. The words hit me like a slap. I blink, caught off guard. Dad's never been one to exclude me like this, especially Not at a family gathering where I've always been part of the inner circle. My brow furrows, and I open my mouth to protest, but the look on his face shuts me down before I can even start. I nod slowly, feeling a strange knot form in my chest, and glance over at Mom. She's wiping down the table with a damp cloth, her movements mechanical, and when our eyes meet, she just gives a small shrug, as if to say she's as clueless as I am. The men stand, their chairs scraping against the floor. I watch as they file down the hallway, their heavy footsteps echoing in the quiet house. The study door closes again, a firm click that feels like a barrier slamming shut. I try to shake off the unease, turning to Mom with some half-hearted small talk about the weather or the drive back home tomorrow. But my mind's not in it. My ears keep straining toward the hallway, picking up on the muffled sounds seeping through the walls. A low chuckle, a murmur of voices, and then something else's soft gasp breaks the silence, leaving me standing there, just outside the study door, my breath caught in my throat after what I've just overheard. My world feels like it's been turned upside down, shattered into jagged pieces I don't know how to put back together. My chest tightens like a vice, squeezing so hard I can barely draw air. There's a bitter taste in my mouth, sharp and metallic, as if I've bitten down on something poisonous. My mind is a storm, swirling with anger so raw it burns, hurt that cuts deeper than I thought possible, and a confusion that leaves me dizzy, grasping for anything to make sense of it all. How could this be happening? How could the people I trust most in this world be part of something so unthinkable? After what feels like an eternity, the muffled activity behind the door starts to wind down. I hear my father's voice, calm and satisfied, saying something I can't quite catch, followed by a low murmur of agreement from the others. My legs are trembling beneath me, weak as if they might give out at any moment, but I force myself to step back from the door before anyone notices I've been lingering. My feet stumble over each other as I retreat down the hallway, my thoughts a chaotic mess, each one louder than the last. I can't face this, not yet. I don't even know if I ever can. I slide back into my seat at the dining table, the wood creaking under my weight as if it knows the burden I'm carrying. Mom's still in the kitchen, oblivious to the storm raging inside me, humming a soft tune to herself while she scrubs dishes. The sound is so normal, so mundane, it feels surreal, like I've stepped into someone else's life. I stare down at my half-eaten slice of cake, the chocolate frosting now looking sickly sweet, almost nauseating. My hands grip the edge of the table, knuckles turning white as I try to anchor myself to pull some kind of composure from the wreckage of my emotions. Should I confront Emily? Should I march back to that study and demand answers from my father? The thought alone makes my pulse race. My palms slick with sweat. I'm sitting there at the dining table, the weight of what I've overheard still pressing down on me like a physical force. When the sound of footsteps pulls me out of my spiraling thoughts, my father, Harold, emerges first from the hallway, his broad shoulders squared, his posture so relaxed it's almost infuriating. There's a satisfied smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth, a glint of triumph in his eyes that I can't ignore. Behind him, his buddies, Tom, Jerry, Carl, Mike, Dave, and Steve file out one by one, their faces a mix of smugness and casual indifference, like they've just wrapped up a late-night card game with nothing more at stake than a few bucks. Their low chuckles echo in the quiet room, each sound scraping against my already raw nerves. And then there's Emily, trailing last, her cheeks tinged with a faint flush, her eyes bright with something I can't or maybe don't want to put a name to. She slides into the chair beside me, her hand brushing against mine as if everything is perfectly fine, as if the world hasn't just cracked open beneath my feet. That fleeting touch sends a jolt through me, a sickening mix of revulsion and a desperate, my aching need to believe this is all some twisted misunderstanding. I can't look at her for long. My gaze drops to her hand as it rests on the table, her fingers curling slowly around the stem of her glass. The movement so deliberate, it feels like a silent taunt. My father takes his place at the head of the table, standing tall, his presence commanding as always. The glint of his old silver watch catches the light as he raises his beer glass, the gesture broad and theatrical. "To family," he booms, his voice filling the room with a warmth that feels hollow to me now. "And to Emily, who's passed the test with flying colors. You're welcome in the study any time, darlin'." The words land like a punch, sharp and bruising, though I don't even know what they mean, not fully. His friends let out a chorus of gruff laughter, the sound grating like sandpaper. It's been 5 years since that day, the day that carved a jagged line through my life, splitting it into a before and an after. I'm 43 now, and on the outside, everything looks like a picture-perfect postcard. Emily and I have built a life together that most would envy. We've got 3 kids, 2 boys, aged 10 and 8. And a little girl who's just turned 5. Our house sits in a friendly neighborhood just outside Chicago, complete with a backyard swing set that creaks under the weight of their laughter on sunny afternoons. We host barbecues where the smell of grilled burgers mingles with the chatter of neighbors, and we sit in the front row at school plays, clapping louder than anyone else. There are moments of pure, unfiltered joy that catch me off guard, sometimes watching Emily kneel on the living room floor, her face lit up with a grin as she helps our youngest piece together a puzzle, or feeling the quiet warmth of her hand slipping into mine as we sit on the couch after the kids are asleep. In those moments, I tell myself we love each other. I tell myself it's enough. But beneath the surface, there's a shadow that never quite lifts, a weight that's been pressing on my chest since that birthday at my parents' house. What I overheard in my father's study, it's a splinter lodged deep in my mind, one I've never dared to pull out. I've kept silent all these years, never breathed a word to Emily about what I suspect, never confronted my father or those men who were there. I've buried it, locked it away in some dark corner of myself, but it's not gone. It creeps back every time Emily mentions a visit to my parents' place in Indiana. She still goes to that study sometimes when we're there, always with some breezy excuse admiring Dad's model cars, catching up on old stories. And I let her. I stand there in the living room with my mother, sipping tea from the same chipped mugs we've used for decades, while my mind spins out of control. I imagine what might be happening behind that closed door, whether it's the same secretive meeting that haunts my thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.